With more on the strategy behind ISIL's social media propaganda, I'm joined by Imani Cheers. She's an assistant professor of media and public affairs at George Washington University. In your opinion, just looking at all of this, just how sophisticated are they when it comes to social media and just media in general?
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for having me. ISIS is really tech and media savvy. It's absolutely amazing to see what this particular terrorist organization has been able to do, say in comparison to their Al-Qaeda counterparts. We used to see videos of Osama bin Laden sitting in a dark cave, sort of somewhere really inconspicuous. You never knew exactly where he was. To now we have full-on propaganda videos filled with incredibly amazing graphics, really compelling content, which is really the scary part because it's really compelling and it's where they're really reaching thousands and thousands of people every day.
Yeah, hooking the young people. British Prime Minister David Cameron says all of this is an attempt to steer attention away from the fact that they are losing ground. Sure. I want to get your thoughts on that because even if they lose ground, right, if they're continuing to recruit, it's still an issue, isn't it?
Definitely. They're losing ground physically, and they're coming into some financial crises, which is definitely very important because they realized that as they were trying to tax, the people who they were, moving into their territories, and they were, extorting and they were robbing banks in Iraq. Well, all the banks are empty, and the refugees, as we've seen with the crisis, are fleeing these countries and leaving Iraq and leaving Syria. So they're at the point now where they might be losing ground, but they're becoming more savvy. They're to social media, they're pulling in supporters from all around the world, the United States in particular.
And in Jim's piece, he talked about the dark web, using the dark web, which makes it harder to monitor them. Just some of the enormous difficulties in tracking ISIL. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, it's really difficult to find people that are constantly trying to hide and are savvy. So it's literally this kind of needle in a haystack idea that the one time it's kind of you're playing whack-a-mole. So as soon as you shut down one site or you end one profile, 10 other ones pop up within a couple of minutes. So the problem right now is that people are using other forms. They were using Twitter, of course, Facebook, and some of these organizations have been very adamant about shutting down terrorist organizations, using their platforms to spread their hateful propaganda. But then you come into the issue of censorship and you add issues of free speech. So it's a challenge for these organizations, but that's where they end up on the dark net. They're still powerful. They're still creating content. And as we've seen, they're unfortunately using the words of a number of Western individuals to help promote their cause.
We saw those children in the story that Jim was talking about. They're featured in some of these videos. What kind of message are they sending by using kids in these videos?
Well, I think the real point behind using children is that you're showing that you have a youthful force that's going to be surrounded. So if you can corrupt the minds of children, they're just going to grow up and continue to be fighters. We always think of children as being very innocent. And then when you see a video where there's children running around executing would-be prisoners guided by an adult, it's really terrifying to think that all the children who are displaced, all the children who are, orphans because their parents, for whatever reason, have died, whether they be in the fighting or elsewhere, they're really capitalizing on this young, disenfranchised group of people that they can really basically manipulate.
I mentioned to you before the broadcast that journalist Robert Evans had come out with this piece, 7 things that he learned about ISIL by pouring through 700 pages of their propaganda. And his takeaway at the end, he summed up his article by saying his main takeaway was how little reading the news and listening to American politicians had educated him about ISIL and what ISIL's goals are, what it really is. And listening to Jim's story at the end where he said, sending out a few tweets, they're trying to do this and that. It just seems to me you've got a lot of young people who are really savvy about media, social media, doing this stuff, and you've got a lot of old guys here in Washington trying to figure out how to combat it. The two just don't square, do they?
They're not squaring right now, and that's actually what's been really successful for ISIS is the reality that they have, as I mentioned earlier, they have completely gone against the norm that the U.S. and Western allies were fighting, which again were these small videos popped up. They weren't very interesting and compelling, but now you have people who are putting together films, propaganda films, and they're savvy and they're engaging and they're compelling to a particular population of people that again are disenfranchised. They're lonely, they're looking for something to attach themselves to. So it's amazing when they see these places, they can really bond with them, unfortunately.
I know as a professor, you're talking to young people all the time.
Yes,
It
sir.
seems like that's how you fight them with young people. I mean,
Yeah.
what is the answer? I mean, is it going to take something just as slick to try and offset them? Young people who
Yeah.
understand social media combating them, or?
I think it's young people. I think you also have, groups that I don't like to really promote them, but groups like Anonymous who are going out and who are able to uncover and unearth some of these individuals on the dark net, and to find people who are participating in Twitter, using these social media sites for their hateful propaganda, and they're able to really go in and expose some of these situations and these individuals. And I think that is where we're going to find exposing them. Young people, my students in particular at George Washington University, they're really passionate about finding ways in which they can use media for good. That's one of my big things. How can we use media for amazing social change? And I'm definitely confident that although we have groups like ISIS out there using social media to promote their hateful messages, we have a whole lot of people using it for good stuff.
Well, you keep churning out the young kids who are doing the right thing. We'll look forward to that. Imani, thanks so much for coming in and talking to us. Appreciate it.